This video will start by describing how the water cycle works, then describe how it has been disrupted by humankind, causing droughts and flooding, and finally describe actions we can take to help restore the water cycle. First, sunshine warms the surface of the ocean or lakes, which causes water to evaporate. This is where about half of our rain comes from. Meanwhile, on land, water vapor comes from trees and plants, which is called transpiration. Clouds are formed when water vapor from water and land condenses onto tiny particles in the air, such as dust and tiny organic compounds emitted by trees. Clouds then move their moisture inland because of winds and differences in air pressure. For example, the transpiration process in trees cools the air, which creates differences in atmospheric pressure that pull clouds from the ocean and brings them inland. Moisture from transpiration typically travels 500 to 5,000 kilometers over 8 to 10 days before it returns to the land. Over time, as the clouds move inland, the water droplets within the clouds become larger, and after a while they become so heavy that they fall as precipitation. All precipitation eventually finds its way back to the ocean. The slower the return to the ocean, the longer that water can be used by plants and by people on land. It is good when the water soaks into the soil, thanks to the roots of trees and other plants that loosen the soil and provide organic matter to hold it. Some of this precipitation contributes to the groundwater beneath the soil and to aquifers deep underground that provide us with well water. Unfortunately, humankind has disrupted the water cycle. In particular, in our eagerness to build cities and roads and farmland, the number of trees on the planet has been cut in half since the start of human civilization. This has disrupted the water cycle in three important ways. First, fewer trees mean less transpiration, which lowers the amount of vapor in the air that condense into clouds, which can reduce precipitation and contribute to droughts. Today, we cut down about 15 billion trees a year, removing transpiration that is equivalent to about 1.4% of annual land rainfall. Second, replacing trees with cities, factories, and roads heats the atmosphere. This creates abnormal air pressure dynamics that can cause clouds to build up over cities and other hot regions, making rainfall less stable and contribute to increasing levels of flooding and drought. Also, instead of seeding clouds with natural hygroscopic particles, they are more likely to be seeded by things like smog, which can cause acid rain. Third, deforestation and the expansion of roads, parking lots, and industrial farming degrades the soil and makes it less able to soak up water. As a result, 77% of land is drier now than it was 30 years ago. To compensate, farmers rely even more on pumping groundwater to irrigate crops, accounting for up to 70% of the world's freshwater usage. Hard soil and pavements speed up the return of water to the ocean, which contributes to both flooding and drought. It also means that the water in our aquifers, which we use for irrigation and other purposes, is no longer being recharged as fast as it is being used. Unfortunately, each of these creates a negative feedback loop, intensifying both floods and droughts. Happily, there are things we can do and have started to do to restore the hydrologic cycle. Perhaps most importantly, we can plant more trees and start gardens on rooftops, in front yards, and in the community. This will increase opportunities for transpiration, which increases water vapor, increases rain, and reduces drought. Transpiration from more trees and gardens also cools the air, which draws clouds inland, making rainfall more stable and reducing the drought and flood cycle. For reference, a large tree can cool the atmosphere as much as 10 room-sized air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. Finally, trees loosen and enrich soil with their roots, improving the water retention and slowing down the return of the water to the ocean. Even more effective are regenerative agriculture practices, such as composting and food forests. Composting increases soil organic matter and allows it to absorb up to 20 times its weight in water. Food forests mimic natural forests, but with its trees and shrubs that produce a diverse yield of many different fruits and vegetables. And just like you don't need to water a forest, food forests are highly water efficient. Additionally, building ponds and small dams significantly increases the amount of water stored in the ground, making landscapes more resilient to drought. Urban areas can use similar strategies to slow down the water, for example, by installing rainwater collection systems that can supply up to 35% of cities' needs. Recycling wastewater can add another 15%. Finally, everyone can help by reducing their domestic use of water. For example, the average American uses 630 liters per day, which is more than double the 292 liters used by the average person in France, which is more than double than the 135 liters used by the average Indian. If Americans would reduce their water usage to the level of the French, that would save the equivalent of 230 billion water bottles of water every day. Taken together, there are many things we can do to create positive feedback loops that restore the water cycle. A well-functioning water cycle is essential for human flourishing and for the food we eat. Remember that our bodies are 60% water. Let's take care of ourselves and of the water cycle that sustains us. Think about things you can do to help restore the water cycle. It's time to take action.